Question. Here's a question for you. How can we talk about our minds as though they were separate from ourselves? If you're looking for crazy, you'll find it in disjointed logic. Well, how can we talk about our minds as if they were separate from ourselves? Well, because they are. There's the mind, and there's the self that you are. Now, there are different ways you can explain this. I have seen over the many years I've studied spiritual teachings different ways to explain it, but let me just ask you a simple question here. We have a science of psychology. You can have opinions about psychology, but for over 100 years, 150 years probably, the science of psychology has said it's possible to change your psychology. You can have hang-ups, you can have traumas in your psychology, and it's possible to heal them so you will feel better. Right? What's the foundation for you changing your psychology? It is that you are not the psychology. So where is the psychology? It's in the mind. You are not your mind. So there's another way to explain this, and we can say that for thousands of years you have had something called this spiritual path or the mystical path. And with mystical I mean it's beyond religion, where you're supposed to believe in something and there's an external savior. The mystical path is about you taking responsibility for yourself, your own growth, your own state of consciousness, and you're seeking to raise your state of consciousness from within through mystical intuitive experiences. Right? So this is the mystical path. And the mystical path is also you can systematically raise your state of consciousness. But why can you do this? Well, the mystical path can be said to be a process of disidentification. And the first thing you disidentify from is your physical body. You realize, I am not the body, I'm more than the body. In other words, materialistic science tells you that everything that goes on in your mind is just a product of physical processes in the brain. But as a mystic, you come to a point where you realize, no, my mind is not the brain. Even though you realize the brain produces thoughts and feelings and all kinds of visual images and stuff. But you are not that. So then the next step on the mystical path is that you realize, I am not my emotions. I am more than my emotions. And the next step after that is, I am not my thoughts. I am more than my thoughts. This is essentially a phase that many people in the modern world, in the industrialized societies that are very affected by the linear analytical mind, they haven't realized that. They think they are their thoughts, they are identified with their thoughts. But look at most spiritual teachers out there. They will tell you, you have to come to a point where you are no longer identified with your thoughts. You realize you are more than your thoughts. How can you realize you're more than your thoughts? Only because the thoughts take place in the mind and you're more than the mind. So the next step up on the mystical path is that you start disidentifying from your sense of identity. Because as we grow up, over many lifetimes, we have had put upon us a certain sense of identity. I grew up in Denmark. I was brought up to see myself as a Dane. I'm a man. I come from a working class family. I have these or that political, or at least my family had these or that political opinions, and so forth and so on. So you can come to realize I am not even that deepest sense of identity because I'm a spiritual being. And I have a mind that has 4 levels, the identity level, the mental level, the emotional level, and the physical level. But I am not my mind. I am more than my mind because I'm a spiritual being. And the way I explain this in many of my videos is that the core of your being is what I call the conscious you. And this conscious you explains how people have had mystical experiences throughout the ages. Because we have the outer mind where what we normally call our sense of personality, our sense of individuality, even our sense of self is located. But the conscious you has the ability to step outside of that outer mind and experience itself as pure awareness or neutral awareness. And the core of your lower being is that conscious you. It is not the identity, the thoughts, or the feelings, or the body. It's more than that. That's the whole foundation for any kind of spiritual growth, raising awareness. But beyond that, the conscious you is not a self-sufficient being. It's an extension of your spiritual self, your I am presence. And in the I am presence is defined your spiritual individuality, which is very different from the worldly individuality that we have built up over many lifetimes of reacting to this very difficult planet. So, you know, how can we talk about our minds as though they were separate from ourselves? Well, because they are. I mean, you can even have modern non-dual teachers who are, and this was posted as a comment to one of my non-duality videos, but you can even have non-duality teachers who are saying that the basic element of our being is awareness. But awareness is more than feelings, more than thoughts, more than your sense of identity. And that's because there is what some spiritual teachers out there call the I am. The sense of I am, which is the core of your being. And this is what I'm calling the conscious you, because when you step outside of the outer personality and experience yourself as pure awareness, neutral awareness, you have this sense, oh, I am. So we can say that most people, they have a sense, I am that. I am the outer awareness. The identity, the thoughts, the feelings, the body. I am that. When a conscious you disidentifies from that, you can experience yourself as pure awareness, I am. I just am. I'm not this, I'm not that. But then as you become more familiar with this experience, you, instead of just staying in this pure awareness, neutral awareness, where you might feel like you have no self, specific self, but you still have the sense that you exist. But after a while, you start then looking up and you realize, oh, I am that up there. That's who I really am. Not this out down here, but up there, I am present, my higher self. That's who I really am. And that's the mystical path. And the whole foundation for this is that you're not your mind, because as long as you identify with your mind, as your mind, you can't step outside of it. And if you can't step outside of it, you can't see that all of these contents in your mind are not real. They are not defining you as a spiritual being. You have taken them on partly to interact with the material world, partly in reaction to what you experienced over many lifetimes in the material world. And therefore you have created certain contents in your outer minds. But they do not define you. You haven't become it. So I assume, I don't know for sure because the question doesn't say, but I assume this comes from this idea that's out there in non-duality circles that everything is one. And, you know, I probably really don't want to go into that too much here, but it's just, so you're saying that everything is one and therefore our minds are not separate from who we are. But that's not really what oneness means. I mean, everything is not one in the sense that it's the same. This is again this idea that differentiation is duality, differentiation is unreal, and only the undifferentiated is real. But as I explained in many of my non-duality videos, we were created for a specific purpose, and that's the growth in awareness. And we are created as differentiated beings. And it's our goal to expand our sense of self as differentiated beings, but as connected to the one mind, to our source. It's not our goal to come into existence as a differentiated being, find some non-dual teaching, and then suddenly switch your mind and cease to exist as a differentiated being. That's not the purpose of life. It's a misunderstanding, it's a misinterpretation of the teachings about non-duality, because non-duality does not mean non-differentiated. It means not dual not the duality consciousness that causes us to see ourselves as separate beings. I've explained that in several other videos, so I won't go into it anymore. But basically it's this. How can we talk about our minds as if they are separate from ourselves? Because they are. We are separate. You are separate from your mind. And it's only when you realize that you can overcome your identification with the mind and connect to who you really are.